Okay, welcome everyone. Hello, LA. We love LA, and we are so glad to be here to offer some um, good news, we hope. We've got some really amazing guests here. I am Edie Dillman. I'm the CEO of B.Public Prefab. We have organized these living room sessions virtually to kind of create a nice, comfortable, relaxed space to learn a lot about rebuilding and the options to rebuild. B.Public specializes in prefab panelized building systems for your structural envelope, so just a portion of your build. And we have a full architectural team on staff, but we also work with architects, amazing architects from across the country. So tonight, we're taking an opportunity to share a lot about how we approach design. And for all of the partners and for our team, when we talk about designing a new home, sort of what is baked into that is green, healthy, thoughtful. I think importantly, craftsman build. So I think a lot of people hear prefab and they think kind of fast and cheap. We build to the highest level of craftsmanship in the US, and it's actually the European standard of green construction. And we're not going to do a whole lot around that. We're really going to talk about the design process and working with the architects that we work with and sort of get inspired looking at some designs. And of course, we're available in the chat. And then after this event, we're happy to set up a separate group call or individual calls to talk about what that means, prefab and high performance, passive house, net zero, all of those things. But tonight we're really excited to share designs, and I'll just, let's see if I can advance the slides. Jaime, this was your slide, and I do really appreciate that you introduced this at the first two events, but really this is informational. We're not giving any legal advice here. Certainly when it comes to architecture, all of these plans that we're talking about will go through a proper vetting and design process. It would have to be specific to your project and go through structural engineering and all of that. So nothing can be screen grabbed and built from this call. Oops, going the wrong direction. So we're going to do just intros in the chat. There are a lot of pros here, and I love that there are builders and other architects and vendors on the call. We want this to be a community space of great resource to you. So if all the pros can introduce yourselves and call yourself a pro, and then homeowners, neighbors, friends, folks, please, if you want to say who you are, and throw any questions in the chat. Again, this is sort of the basis of our work. Getting certainly our work is known for being very low energy for heating and cooling, but I think importantly in talking to all of our wildland interface neighborhoods, communities that we work with, they're also airtight, and being airtight means that they're smoke tight. So when we have smoke events and fires, that your home, if built this way, would have a fresh air ventilation system that's filtered, so that even if you had to leave your home, again, to stay safe, that when you return, we want very limited infiltration into the home and that it's nice and clean, no smoke when you come back. I know you have neighbors that are suffering from all of that damage. And most of the projects we do are all electric. And so we're thinking about your healthy indoor air quality and good materials, and of course, lasting and healthy, no mold and all of those things. So I am going to introduce JD Scott, who is on the B.Public team. He is our lead architect. He is a fantastic architect designer and has a lot to go through very quickly. So I will zip it and jump into the chat if anybody has questions. And then after JD, we're going to pass it to our COLLAB partners. And I'll come back just for a second and talk about what COLLAB is and where to find that and more resources about our partners in design. Okay, JD, you are on. Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, welcome. I'll second that. So glad to see everyone on the call and even some familiar folks that I've gotten to meet with over the past few weeks. So really appreciate everyone being here. Yeah, like Edie mentioned, I kind of just want to go through some of our process and approach and the way that we think about standard home plans. So you can go ahead and advance to the next one, Edie. And a couple of things like kind of upper level things I wanted to touch on before we start looking at designs or our process is that we really look at standard as something that can simplify and really help you prioritize things for your new home. And I think all of our standard plans have this ability to be customized and to have special moments that are tailored to you and to your vision and to what you're wanting to get out of a new home. So that's I think what I mean by standard isn't static, is that it can be something that's adjusted and really tailored to you and your family. You can go to the next one, Edie. And similarly, standard, one of the advantages, and I think all of us on the call can vouch for this, is that it can be a much more efficient approach to getting to that end goal of a build or a rebuild. We found, and even in our recent projects that even using a standard home plan as a starting point and modifying it, there's still a lot of savings in terms of project schedule, design fees, all of these things. And so that's definitely something, that we subscribe to and that I think is really important to consider as we're talking about, the use of a quote unquote standard floor plan. And then the third thing I wanted to kind of upper level thing I wanted to touch on is that what we're kind of all of us are talking about is really not that new, especially in the context of really great American cities, Los Angeles being one of them, of course. All of these cities have these standard building types or building typologies that have been developed and repeated over generations. And I think this idea of standard homes or standard home plans has really contributed to the urban fabric and the sense of kind of character in all of those cities. So I think that's another reason why we're really excited about the possibilities of standardization. I want to talk just a little bit about how B.Public approaches site planning, just because that's such a critical step and kind of it's often our first step with homeowners is determining the highest and best use of a site and really how to implement, your full vision for a site, and to explore all the different possibilities in between. So you can advance, Edie. We often go through a lot of iterations very quickly with our clients when we're in the site planning phase, just because there are a lot of possibilities to explore and a lot of different, environmental spatial factors to start thinking about, especially on a tighter, urban lot. Even things like solar analysis and kind of early kind of solar modeling is something my team takes very seriously at the outset. And so we really are able to model and run these types of analyses in tandem with site plan sketching, because we really want to study things and understand where there are efficiencies we can build into the project early on that are going to pay dividends down the road. So I think orientation is definitely one of those. And we really, I think, just generally take a really holistic approach to site planning, even if you're wanting to phase things or you're not sure if you want that ADU or that mother-in-law suite or that detached garage. Like, we do want to factor that into site planning early on. So I always ask clients to really give us their vision or that wish list of what they want, to be on their site so that we can plan for it and we can really make sure that these things are working together in a coherent way on the site. This, I think, is a good example of, an accessory building or a garage may or may not be built in that initial phase, but it's really important because it's going to create this kind of courtyard space. So that's why we want to factor those things early on into the process. So next, I'll kind of go through, I think, our approach to collaboration, because I think that's a critical kind of step, and that's a really important part of our practice. You can go to the next slide, Edie. I would say that our projects are primarily client driven, and we're really excited about bringing our clients' vision and their interests and their wants and needs into the process. And I think that's especially true of our clients who have had to rebuild after wildfire events. These are two of my clients from one of our CZU rebuilds. I think our rebuild clients are always in a unique position because most of them, never imagined having to hire an architect or go through this process. And that's a lot different from someone who is building a second home or who has been, thinking of some kind of dream home for a decade or something. These clients in particular used to remind me that they, didn't ask to be put in this position, but they're doing it by necessity. And so we really want our design process to reflect that, and we really want to be sensitive to that in our design process. And kind of what I was saying earlier is that, yeah, our goal obviously is to have this initial kind of exploratory phase where we're talking about your vision, but ultimately we want to bring that into construction documents and into a built project. And so that collaborative piece, I think, is really what allows us to do that. So we really think of our clients as a participant in that process. You can go to the next one, Edie. B.Public uses a lot of different cloud-based tools in our collaboration with clients. I mean, obviously, there's no substitute for walking the site with you, sitting down in person with you, and we will do that. But as the project unfolds, we really like to have this open channel of collaboration and communication, with you and as a client. And so we use tools like Miro and Canva to really communicate and trade ideas and share progress with you as the project develops. And that's for both, thinking of a floor plan or a building envelope and even in the design of individual spaces. You can go to the next one, Edie. Like this is a sketch just looking at, a guest bathroom, right? It's not the most, important space in a house, but this was something the client really wanted us to explore and really wanted to get their input on. So I think we take that collaboration really seriously, throughout our process. And even, going into exterior finishes and things like that, we really want clients to feel heard and we really want to show a wide range of options at this phase. And even things like color selections or finishes are really critical in that regard.
And can I
Okay.
interrupt? Because I'm
Sure.
familiar
Yeah.
with what this is.
Yeah.
For those who haven't seen Miro, it really is a whiteboard that's,
Yeah.
held in the internet. And we load onto it all of our sketches and the progress drawings, meeting notes, links to things. I love it when you can kind of see on the bottom right-hand side, like a tile selection or a color selection that our clients, and everybody's different. Some people love this format and some people just want it in an email. But in this way that you could take a JPEG or a link from Pinterest or Instagram and throw something onto this whiteboard so that you can see those are actually sticky notes that our team and the client have put onto this, which I love because at 3 a.m. I think of something and I want to put it somewhere, but I don't necessarily want to like text somebody or call. And so this is a format where it's collaborative, but it also creates a running list of those notes. So in between meetings, we can gather sort of the list and requests or notes from our clients and incorporate those without that endless email back and forth. So it's a place to remember, but also sort of visual inspiration and kind of a wonderful dumping ground of things that you have access to as a client. Okay, I will stop and get it back to JD.
You can go to the next couple slides, CD. And it and I would second that. Like it really I think clients like it because you also get like a full almost like a memento or like a full picture of the whole process that you can look back on. And it's kind of nice sometimes to see how we arrive, at a bunch of sticky notes or photos into these finished look and feel sheets that really describe, how you want that interior space to feel, so it is a really good log, I think, of that whole process and a great communication tool. I'll go quickly just through a few examples of standard plans. I'm not going to go, in depth into any one of these. This first one, this was actually our first B.Public project. This was for a client in the CZU rebuild, but it's actually become part of our standard library of plans. It's kind of a modified U-shaped plan. Most of our standard plans have what we call like a great room, which is that central space that is kind of a kitchen, living, dining area. Edie calls this one the Brady Bunch house because there's, I think there were two teenage daughters living here from two different marriages, and they each had this wing of the house, and so that's why the bedrooms and the bathrooms are separate, and they're each completely identical, is to kind of tailor it to that client. But you can see it's a simple floor plan, but you could imagine a lot of different outdoor spaces or configurations to kind of make it unique or to tailor it to your project. So this is also a plan that has a loft space. So it's one of our only plans that has like a true loft level. This is the West plan, which has become probably our most popular standard plan. And I'm showing two kind of different renderings of it in these slides, just because, just to kind of drive home that point I was talking about earlier, is that this, even though it's a standard floor plan, it can be adapted to a different roof form or a different material package, and it can have a very different architectural expression, between the two. So, yeah, standard floor plan, but can be very can be customized certainly. This is a more compact plan, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. And we actually have versions of this that include like this small attached garage, and others that have a carport or no garage. So that's another example of kind of a simple move that can change a standard plan pretty drastically. And I think the next slide, yeah. So that's the difference between the two. And then the last plan I'm going to talk about is just the array plan. This is our probably our largest standard offering. I believe it's, yeah, three bedroom plus an ADU. Again, that can be part of this standard plan or not. And this one also has like a larger attached 2-car garage. I think this one, people are often drawn to that U shape because it does create a nice, more open courtyard space, but there's also that connective piece between the U-shaped plan and that ADU. That's also a really nice, you could imagine being a really nice covered outdoor space. So yeah, that's a kind of a snapshot of our standard plans. But thanks so much, and I'm happy to field questions in the chat or in the Q&A afterwards. But I'll be sure to share my contact info with everyone. So thank you.
Really great. That was fast and a lot of really good information. Thank you, JD.
Yeah, no problem.
And so we're going to shift to the second half of presentations, and I just want to introduce the COLLAB. So B.Public prefab company, creating envelopes in panels that come together like Legos on site to get you weathered in and structural into high performance envelope very quickly. And a lot of our work is with outside architects who are specifying our panels for construction, just like they would specify a window and door for performance, highly technical, but there are lots of ways to finish those windows and doors. So we launched COLLABs 2 years ago, and two of those architects are here, and I'm just thrilled to introduce them. The idea of this is really excellent design that is standardized. Again, what JD talked about, customizable. So don't look at the finishes as like, I don't really love that wood paneling. This is the form, this is the layout, and all of those finishes on each of these plans can be customized and chosen by you. So what these architects are offering in partnership with us is that there's a quick and easy way to build to high performance, but you work directly with these amazing architects and designers for their plans. So the design work is going to be direct with them. And then it comes to B.Public for panelization and getting your builder trained and getting the project done. So 2 for 1, you're getting 2 amazing companies no matter what, and then customizing it to you. So I believe Holly is up front. Yes. So HereAbout Homes, I'd like to introduce Holly Mumford. She's actually in Brooklyn tonight, and her 9-month-old, I believe, is asleep. So we've got her. Let's take advantage. And Holly, I will advance for you. So you just tell me when to move.
Hi, everyone. So nice to be here. I am just personally a huge fan of B.Public and everything they do, and I'm just always incredibly honored to be part of their collaboration. So thank you, Edie and JD, for having me. I'm really happy to just share the room with all of you tonight, and if anything, share some inspiration and know that there's a path forward, regardless how you get there. So tonight I wanted to share, we have a bunch of plans available through the collaboration with B.Public. My business is fully pre-designed plans. I am a licensed architect in Montana, and I started my business to really meet people in a different way as a designer, really finding a path to like balance budget, balance design, and provide everything at just a little bit more attainable level. So the house that you're seeing here is our Hangout V3 standard plan attached with a breezeway and with a garage. And this has been customized with our very new client, Jenna and Charlie, who are rebuilding in Altadena. I started talking with them 2 weeks ago through B.Public, and they are on board and they are ready to go. And things are moving quickly, and it's a really inspiring project. They've got a really interesting lot that we've helped sort out and understand with them. And this house is a little bit over 2,000 square feet. They've got 2 young kids, and they needed some garage space. So you can envision this house, if you've seen this house before or not. This is the pre-designed home, and then this garage and the breezeway are the attachment that really is making their compound of a home and completing it for them. If you don't mind doing the next. So this is the original pre-designed plan. This is the Hangout, and we have multiple versions of it. Jenna and Charlie really liked the V3 because it just packs, what I like to say, it packs a little more punch. You get a little bit more usage of your square footage. This is one of our beautiful initial renderings of the home, the big living space with an open vaulted area. And then the second floor starts here and goes above the kitchen and above the dining room. And if we flip to the next page, I believe it's I get so crazy, everybody, with marking things up. Let's skip the video. I'll share the videos in the chat. You guys can go later and watch them, but it's a fun video to like see and walk through the house and really understand everything about it. Okay, so I'll walk through this floor plan a little bit. So as we come into the breezeway here, you've got your garage stationed this way. So Jenna and Charlie specifically, their driveway will come in this way, obviously. And then they've got this like nice big, they're on a dead end street. So they're dead ending here, which is nice. And then they have a lot of backyard space, which we're taking advantage of. And we're actually going to be flipping. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Oh my goodness. It's also 9:30 for me, so everyone has to cut me a little bit of slack. Okay, so as we come into the entry, they wanted some like really high functioning mudroom space because kids. And so we've got lots of cubby space here. And then as we come through the entry, a nice art wall, powder room, this like cross area that is going to be utilized mainly as their pantry and as their laundry. So an extension of their kitchen. And then the kitchen and dining room are here, and it's held under that second story that you saw in the rendering. And then as you come into this living room space, it all opens up and it is vaulted. The height of this home stays pretty low still. It's 25 feet and some change. We've downsized it a little bit for people. So if you have a height restriction, don't get off put by that. There's ways we can work with it. So their backyard is all over here. So we're going to be flipping the windows to this wall so that they can have, and doors so that they can have access straight out into their backyard and take advantage of some nice views that they have north. And then we've got a primary suite downstairs, nice big bedroom, bathroom with a shower, tub, and toilet space. And then we'll head upstairs and I'll share a little bit of what we're going to be tweaking with them as well. So I'm just mentioning all the stuff that they're tweaking and we're revising together because the process together is really super fun. It's casual, but we're here to support and listen to what you need in your home to make it functional and to make it wonderful for when you're actually living there. Like that's what I imagine as my main goal and my main job. So as we come upstairs, they've got a bedroom here. This area of the home lifts up and that dormer's a loft here that looks out over the living room space. And then as we cross this area, one bathroom, a little open to below space to like peek into that entry. That works really nicely when you don't have the breezeway. With the breezeway, it gets a little funky. So we're taking it out with Jenna and Charlie, and we're going to utilize this square footage, either for moving their laundry space up here or doing like a little fun reading nook or something more storage. There's so many possibilities. And then we've got another office, flex, even potential bedroom here and another bedroom here. So there's a lot packed into a pretty small square footage. This home is 56 feet this way and 24 feet this way. Is working really nicely with the panels and yeah. What else to say about it? Let's go to the next slide. Yes, okay. So in working with us in collaboration with B.Public, after getting all of the fun onboarding stuff done, after we've chatted and we've listened to everything that you need and like where you might want to customize something or where you don't even need to, we work through a workshop together. And it's really us listening to like all of your wants, all of your needs, understanding you as a person and as a family, so that when we get into this next phase of the sketch drawings, we know exactly what to do, or exactly like to make the right assumptions for you, to make the right design decisions for you. So we'll get to sketching. We do 2 layout options for each of the areas that you want to revise so that you can have a really nice gut check. So if you're saying like, hey, I really want to do something crazy with the pantry, I'll be like, why? And then we'll work through that and you'll see one sketch option that's very much similar to what we had discussed. And then what I like to call a wild card sketch option, which is us listening to you and presenting a design decision that is different maybe than what you expected. And it's just, like I said, it's a really nice gut check. You're going to be putting so much into the home, and you're going to be putting so much energy into the home, building and living, that we really want to make it right for you when you're actually in it and living there. From sketching, we go into a refined design where we just tweak things. You see things in 3D, and then we start to develop the planning set, which are these actual drawings that are used for collaboration between B.Public and your contractor and all of the people that are involved, so everyone can start to plan. And then from there, we just take the next steps as a team. And that's it. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to share my email. Please reach out. Yeah, hopefully we have some photos of this home soon. So, I mean, in the fall, but feels soon.
We do say prefab is fast, and that was an exceptionally fast but thorough, wonderful presentation on that project. This is a very popular plan. And we're doing multiples in all sorts of climate zones. It's really exciting to see this one come together in Altadena. And thank you, Holly, for sharing and sharing like what's possible. Really, really wonderful and clear. And there are many more plans offered by Holly. They are on the COLLAB section of the website. So if you're on B.Public Prefab, at the top navigation, both of these partners and all of the plans we're looking at, you can scroll through and watch the videos. Thank you, Holly. Thank you. Thanks for staying up late.
Oh yeah.
LA thanks you. And now we're going to switch to Shape Architecture. Steve Scribner's here to present and share some stories. And we're good buddies with this amazing firm, the AIA Colorado Firm of the Year 2024, I'd like to point out.
Correction is that we're the Young Firm of the Year.
I thought it was the Firm of the Year. Well, you are the Firm of the Year for B.Public. We're just going to call you that, but you get your own award. And even better, a very young and ambitious and very accomplished firm. And we do a lot of work with these guys because, of course, they specialize in passive house, but they also work sort of side by side with us, working with different clients, but in the Marshall rebuild. And so Steve's going to share a beautiful project from Boulder, Colorado, and some other things. So without ado, I introduce Steve Scribner of Shape Architecture.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for the nice introduction. Sorry, my 5-year-old tried to come join the meeting just now, but yeah, my business partner and I started the company in 2016, basically because we couldn't find anyone in Colorado that we wanted to work for, because we were passive house certified designers, and there's a lot of improving architecture in our great state, but we just felt like we can't afford to build more houses that aren't built to the better standard of quality. And it really comes down to comfort and health and durability. And energy was one of the reasons we got into passive house and learned about it, drank the Kool-Aid. But health and resilience are really, really fundamental. And I think that's why we're such good buddies with B.Public. I also want to just echo everything the way JD and Holly spoke about process. I'm not going to go through our process in such detail, but we really are, I think, aligned in so many ways around just listening, empathy, and your home is really what that drives the design process. It's not about any ideas we have as architects. So let's get into it. Instead of talking through one of our COLLAB projects, I thought I would actually give this sort of case study about a home we did in the Marshall Fire here in Colorado. And a family moved in this 1 year ago, actually, right about now, after the fires had taken place over 2 years previously. So we really do understand the journey it is, and we really understand how traumatizing, deeply traumatizing it is when your home burns down. And uh, and I think we really feel a lot of empathy for that. So if we go to the next slide, this was the day we met the clients on the site on the left, that image, and it was just, I'd never seen anything as heartbreaking and devastating and just really scary and depressing. And it was it was April. It was just often nice here, but it was just like a cold, windy, wet feeling day. And it was not fun, but it was a really like, I think, moving kind of introduction to this project. The next time we went back was a month or two later, and FEMA had done a fantastic job of the reclamation of the site. And I've heard that that's happened there for you all. And I think that really was the beginning of this sort of like turning point and shift, where it became, rather than like trying to just do the best for these people, that to give them something back of their life, but really where it became an opportunity, and we could see the promise, and this was going to be something better than it ever had been before. So if we go on, and it's similar to as JD described, we can start with a COLLAB pre-designed project, the way Holly sort of talked through the sort of evolution that can occur. We can start with this plan. We can start with other plans that we've done before or you like, and that does shortcut the process the way JD described. In this case, the lot was constrained and we wanted to optimize. It's Passive House certified. So we really wanted to optimize for active solar, passive solar, and connection from the lot through the lot. In this, they had the great fortune of being on a curve in the road, so they were going to have sort of unobstructed views to the Flatiron Mountains, despite being in a tight neighborhood. And so the way the windows are oriented was really important. And that kind of created, we did the sketch on the left, and that really did end up being pretty close to the way the house ended up. And a lot of the features, like we needed to have they wanted a 2-car garage, needed a 2-car garage. And in Passive House, we really want to keep that separate from the living space. You don't want to try to build over it or partially build around it, because the simpler the envelope, the more resilient it is, the easier it is to construct, and therefore the more successful it's going to be. And really keeping your living space as a really simple envelope. It's just recipe for lower cost and better energy performance. And so the deck was a space to use the space over the garage. And then the trellis that was on the deck, fire treated lumber. It is wood, but it's either heavier size members or fire treated. But that's part of the passive shading strategy to get to Passive House. So keep going. We just kind of came with this very simple concept. Previous slide of the yellow area for public. So coming in on the lower level, and this is something where I can imagine a redesign for you, if that made sense, where if it made sense to just do 2 stories versus 3. This was on a slope lot, so the 3 made sense. But here there's like a couple of offices. One's a secret lab for the kids, and then the larger office for the stay-at-home or the work-from-home dad. And then and guest bedroom. So going upstairs, this is only 2,500 square feet, which I know it's a reasonable size. It's not tiny, but if we can go up a level, the open concept kitchen, living, dining. The really important feature here is this is not a super extra spacious space. Yes, 2,500 square feet. But it opens to that deck with these double, so they're all triple pane, high performance, Passive House level windows, double doors that open outwards and can fold back against the side lights. And that just allows for this like very seamless gathering and truly doubles the amount of living space they have. So moving on to the 3rd floor, just a pretty simple primary bedroom at the front where those views are, and then a couple kids' bedrooms in the back. You can imagine this configuration. One of the cool things though is that there's a loft over the space because of the way the roof form was really just designed to optimize for passive and active solar. So we have a good long south-facing roof slope, but that created a loft space that there's ladders in the kids' rooms and they connect in the loft so they can have secret meetings. So we just keep moving. This was one where we worked early on with the whole design, the whole team, and this would have been a great B.Public project. It ended up being stick built by a fantastic builder that's Louisville, Colorado based. They're called Living Craft. And so they're one of the few builders we really trust to get to the level of airtightness if we don't do prefabricated walls. But we also built, so there's collaboration with the owners, really, really close builder. This was, and Passive House energy modeler, and then a structural engineer, all of us with the same set of like goals and values. And this was an early chart he did based on the actual energy, the actual form of the house, energy modeling, and including incorporating shading, et cetera, to sort of set our targets. And here we ended up with going for the Passive House low energy building standard, which is a slightly relaxed standard, because the zoning envelope had a little bit of tight constraints on the width of the house. So we couldn't go an extra 2 or 3 inches of insulation on the walls. It was a double stud wall. So then keeping going, this sort of like took that graph and helped us identify the target R values. And that's something that we would do. B.Public offers multiple different wall thicknesses. Here in Colorado, we have a much more extreme climate. So we were in this kind of world of our 30 to 40 walls and roofs, or walls and slab, our 60 roof. In California, we don't want to ever overdo it. It just costs you more and you don't get the sort of reward from that. So we do a lot of analysis on where's the sweet spot in terms of cost you spend to get to this level of energy and comfort without overspending on the wrong things. And that's one thing. Passive House has a bad name sometimes for being like unnecessarily extra costly. That's not true when you optimize it. And that's something we always work hard to do. So continuing on, just a construction photo of the double stalled wall with the high performance building wrap. It's the same materials that B.Public uses with the panels. And some of those shading devices we had are really critical south facing house, even though they're not extending far, they are making a critical difference to the potential for overheating. And the same with that recess under at the front door. And this is just that, kitchen, living, dining space, looking back at the dining and kitchen from the living room. Again, feels pretty spacious. It's not huge, but everything in its place. IKEA kitchens, IKEA cabinets, simple tile. Some of it was from Home Depot, some was from Doll Tile, but really like we want you to get the best value. So, and then they splurged on like 2 things. One was this like beautiful millwork bench that the photographer is probably sitting on, and the other was these nice stairs. And then part of that was just to let light through, having the open stringer stairs. So going on, this is a text. These are 2 texts that I got from the client like several months later. They had moved in, and then they were like, is our like heat pump not hooked up? Why isn't it running? And it turns out like in Passive House, a third of your heat energy is supposed to come from in our climate would be from solar gain. A third would be from the occupants just moving around and being hot bodies. And a third would be from the heating system. In this case, the heating system was like negligible. It was because they are stay-at-home homeschooling and stay like working from home, and they're always there. And so the spike in the green was when they left their house, but they left the set point for their heating system. And that's when it went up to, 20 kilowatt hours. It's really, really low even then. The day they moved in, it was a really, really scary, traumatizing experience because it was a crazy windstorm. Literally the day they were moving in. And the last time it had been that windy was the day their house had burned down. So it was scary, but it's double stud walls, really great insulation. So such a different experience, like just how much quieter it was in the house. The XL, the utility turned off the electricity to the entire region or area in concern of like, starting another wildfire. So all of the neighbors were at the coffee shop the next morning cold. They were there to stay warm. And our clients were in the house, and you can see this one on the left. I don't think this was from that day, but it was 70 degrees, and they had the heat pump was set. The set point was set to 64. So just from just from sun and the good thermal envelope, they were warm. That was true resilience. Just not noticing when the power was off. So that's why we do it. It's sort of like that's my most proud moment. If you want to keep going, I think we're kind of at the end here, but happy to answer any of the questions and happy to again think about. We love working with B.Public. We are not Californians. We've spent some time there. We have one project up in the Carmel area, and we're happy to be a resource in any way that makes sense. But huge advocates for rebuilding in a fire-safe way, and a way as introduced to make sure that you are not going to have smoke damage and you're going to be comfortable if the power goes out and your house isn't going to burn down because you have metal siding. So yeah, let me know if there's any other questions. And of course, feel free to use B.Public's website or our website to try to, track down any other COLLAB, based plans, if that makes sense. But nice to meet you all.
Thank you, Steve. This is one of my all-time favorite houses, and I did crawl up into the kids' lofts, and it was awesome. It was totally sneaky, and it is thoughtful design. And I appreciate that you guys are excited to offer this, or a variation of this, for a 2-story for LA. And I think it's a good thing to talk about, is we're going to continue adding home plans and partners with appropriately sized projects or designs for smaller lots in Altadena and in the Alphabets in Palisades. And this house is so beautiful. It looks like a rendering. It's not. That's actually a photograph. And it's a real home for people who went through a lot and are joyful about sharing their homes. I've had a lot of questions, particularly this week, about visiting homes. B.Public has not completed any projects or assemblies of projects yet in Southern California. We've got 3 projects in Santa Cruz for the CZU complex fire rebuild. We have projects in New Mexico. We have projects in Colorado. I know it's not super convenient, but if you're on the road, we had clients who were traveling for work, and they did go visit one of the homes in Santa Cruz. And I think you all know this, but I think it's worth repeating. Other communities that have gone through this devastation want to help. They want to give advice. They want to support. And certainly they're happy to open their homes or talk to you about their experiences and what they learned. And I think that's really exceptional. The dogs are going to bark. The front door just opened. It's not a 5-year-old. And I wanted to go ahead, Steve.
I'm sorry. I also sort of along those lines, I wanted to mention on our website, we have another house that was in the Marshall Fire. I'll share a link to it. But it was 1,500 square feet, whereas this one was 2,500. So that is also potentially another good starting point, just one floor. If, this is either exceeds the budget or the square footage that you need.
Yeah, and I think we talked about in sessions 1 and 2 of the living room sessions more about fire hardening. I think this is a great slide to stop at. I mean, all of the projects actually that we shared of passive house being airtight does discourage, obviously, any kind of exchange of oxygen inside to the outside and vice versa. So discouraging fire to move towards the home. But always looking at these simplified forms. And you can see on this that there really is no vents that you can see, that every edge here is sealed. And as Steve pointed out, fire, treated wood for Class A fire rating is important. I think that's true to everything that we're doing in sort of simplifying and making the home protected from any of those events. But it also means it is simpler to build, faster to build, clear plans to read on projects. And I'm gonna just back up for 1 second. And Steve was talking about that incredible communication from a client, and we get them too. I mean, I love when people, brag about how low their energy costs were. $4 in the middle of February in Colorado is a crazy electricity bill. But it's important for us to point out, because you guys are in California, that this house is like the Yeti cooler. It is the stainless steel coffee mug. This is just as useful and important for energy savings and comfort in a cooling season as well. So that idea of like you can put hot coffee into the thermos, but I put ice cold water, and I love that my thermos keeps my ice cold water ice cold until 4 in the afternoon without adding additional ice. And that's why we talk about it being passive. And it is just as important for those cooling seasons. And certainly when we're talking about sort of the performance and making sure that it is resilient in this sort of low energy comfort, even when we're seeing temperatures rise, that we want this to last. And we talk about homes that are legacy homes, craftsman build. Even the tapes that we use in construction are rated for 100 years. So these homes are really intended for, the next 300 years of use. So I would love to open it up for questions or comments. There are a lot of really great pros on the call. Anyone who would like to chime in, it is more orderly to raise your hand, but sometimes I have a hard time finding that little tab on the chat. But we can open it now to anyone who wants to ask questions. Homeowners, I prioritize you, and go for it.
I was wondering if there was advice on like what you can or shouldn't try to modify of a floor plan. Like, is it best to start one that's closest to the size you want? Is it better to go a little larger and then go down, or vice versa?
JD, do you want to answer that? That's a great question, Eloise. And I'm glad
Yeah.
you're here. Nice to see you.
Yeah, it is a really good question. I mean, I think I think the first part of your question, like, what are the do's and don'ts around things to modify or spaces to modify? Like, I do think, at least in our standard plans, we try really early on to condense what we call plumbing walls to the bare minimum. So those are walls that are, um, where plumbing lines and plumbing vents and things like that for fixtures are coming up. And so, uh, any changes that add or increase the amount of plumbing walls in a project, we try to avoid, or we try to kind of condense or consolidate. So that's one of the major ones. I think to your second question about, is it better to start with a larger footprint and then reduce, or to start small and add on? I think a lot of it depends on site and the site planning. Um, like Holly mentioned, I think that initial run through of your program and your needs and wants and the uses of the space, I think we can really, help you pinpoint what that target square footage should be before we jump into designing or redesigning something. So I think, yeah, I think it just depends a little bit more on your program or your specific needs. I think all three of us would probably say it's always better to start smaller. And I think the typical client that we have is interested in that kind of compact footprint or a more efficient approach to a floor plan. So, but I'd love to hear Steve and Holly chime
Yeah.
in too on that.
Well, I would say, like, don't feel like you have to pick the right starting point, Feel free to just reach out and be like, I kind of like this about this, and I kind of like that about that. Because you shouldn't feel like you have to like start with something kind of close and then you're going to whittle it down or go bigger. I think it's what's really important is identifying what you like about something. It could be 5 times bigger than what you're going to have, but if you can try to process what it is that's important to you, we might be haven't, like, whether it's Shape or B.Public or Holly or anybody else, another architect, like, this is what we do for a living. So often we can quickly be like, oh, oh, we designed a house like that for this other couple, like kind of what you're saying, or just be like, yeah, we just take that and chop off a wing or make it 2 stories, or so it's having a really good starting point is about knowing what it is that does and doesn't work for you. And again, even if that isn't calling out to you, it's okay. Don't feel like it's, oh, well, the design process is going to be too expensive for me.
Yeah,
I think.
and I totally agree with that, and I think that's really well said. And I also think the best starting point is like really identifying your minimum program and your maximum program, and maybe and what I mean by program is like number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, and maybe where you can be flexible on that, and really identifying like the most important thing for me in this home is to have a main floor, primary suite or something like that. And then kind of going from there so that when you are looking at all of these things and all of the options and trying to make decisions, you're led with like some really clear guidelines that you've set forth for yourself. And it can become a little bit less overwhelming, I think.
Thank you. That was helpful.
So super good. And I think we often ask, especially with fire survivors, what was it about your home that you really loved that you want to keep, repeat? And what were things, in a friend's house that you loved and you've always wanted, or things that just never worked right that you want to get right this time, right? That one cabinet that, you always hit your knee on, whatever it is, let's work on that. Eric, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for raising your hand.
Sure, I like to follow the rules, but definitely want to defer to homeowners. I've been definitely participating in a lot of overlapping meetings, dialogues, architectural lectures, and panels here in Altadena and Los Angeles. One of the things that I've been trying to consult with people on and also commiserate with people on is the sense that they need speed, right? And I think prefab obviously offers that, in such a great way. But a lot of people seem to be drawn towards getting back on the land really fast and taking advantage of the 10% increase around adding an ADU. And I was wondering if Holly or Steve, if you've had any kind of experiences, or maybe you want to kind of speak to the idea of, sometimes you have to go slow to move fast. And is it potentially, an interesting option to design out of order and design that ADU that you've been waiting 30 years to add to your property? And just, I'll let you, anything that you want to kind of speak to that, because I think there's a lot of people in Altadena that are feeling that pressure and thinking about the ADU as the first step to get back on the land versus just going through a holistic build.
Eric, I'm going to jump in just quickly and then I'll let Steve answer. We've been watching a lot of data from the industry about doing phase development, and we often do it. All of our clients have a budget. There's always a budget. And so being able to plan for that and even run it through estimating with a local GC, but there's some discouraging information about doing phase development that really, even if you're just going to get a portion of both units done, there's a huge savings, whereas doing just an ADU or doing something later becomes much more expensive to build. Okay, Steve, can you?
Nodding my head. Yeah, it comes up a lot in our work. And what we usually find is the first thing is the only thing in the end. So we really encourage people to figure out what's the minimum they want. But I really liked how you phrased it though. There is a going slow to go fast. My 9-year-old came home with that, saying that, and I so appreciated it because he is a little more, he's a pretty thoughtful kid sometimes. And it makes such a difference. And I think with our Marshall Fire, we went all in for Passive House. We iterated, we refined, and we were not the fastest architects on that. They were not the first people back in. But then if you look around, the people that saved 3 months, like the neighbor to the west of that house I was showing has a bunch of windows that face them, and the views are the opposite direction. And it's because they were like, I need to pick a plan from a builder that's like, but then that builder rammed it through they didn't have an architect. The builder rammed it through the approval process. They ended up like getting the house in the wrong place on the site. They ended up having huge issues with like the grade because they hadn't like really thought through it. And then they ended up with like no windows towards the view. And I mean, that's a kind of extreme example, but now it's only been a year since they moved in, and it's like, do they wish they'd moved in 3 months earlier? Not really. And so I don't want to diminish anybody's need. There's real need to get in on time, right? We recognize that and we do everything in our power. But just put yourself 2 years down the line and make sure like that you don't make decisions, because I guess that's most people don't, but like you see issues when people make decisions out of haste versus out of really doing what it takes to optimize for the long term, especially when it comes to like energy savings, health, and then just maximizing what you have.
That's great.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, I mean, just I have the follow-up there is that kind of picking up on what JD said in his intro, which is a lot of the people that I'm talking to are in the exact same position JD mentioned, which is they were in nowhere in their minds they were going to hire an architect. They weren't in that mindset, right? And so it's about bridging that kind of design process with a lot of people and getting that information out to them. And I guess whatever the economies of scale are, because I think statistically speaking, there's a very low percentage of people that actually use an architect to design a home. And there's a really critical time right now to kind of bridge that gap and get more people connected with professionals. Thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Really good. Other folks, are there other questions in the chat that I missed? I feel like this was super thorough, tidy, fast, great graphics, really helpful. Yeah, go ahead, Philomena, please.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to ask, it's a question for Steve. I know, Steve, you have been talking a lot, but I wonder if you could speak to the economic impact of designing with passive strategies versus without. And I know, you don't have to do everything, so there's a nuance to it, but yeah, can you just generally speak to it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking that question. What's weird is we've been doing passive houses in Colorado for 6 years. And if I still can't answer that question, because when we take the costs of the houses that we do all across the spectrum of performance, and we map that against cost or against square footage, you can't pick out the passive houses. The lowest cost house that we ever did was like $225 a square foot, is a certified passive house. It was one of the first certified passive houses we did. So sorry, little thumping little kid. So it is no doubt it adds costs, but it's impossible to put a number on what that percentage is, because it's dwarfed by complexity, by size, by soils conditions, by finishes, and structural complexity. So yes, you'll pay an extra 20,000, 30,000 in a lumber package, and then it's dense pack cellulose insulation lot. It's not really, it's like marginal added cost there. So that is, I'm sorry, it's not a clear answer, but and there's no like clear, we don't have good stats on the ROI in terms of energy savings. But I think it's like the text messages I got, it's like a little unquantifiable, because our clients are comfortable without the heat being on at all, or when they're in a fire scenario and they can turn off the ERV and it's totally smoke free inside, that's a benefit that's not measurable in terms of money.
And I will add, if I may, Philomena, like a lot of why we're here, why we started this company, is that that assurance around performance and sort of the ease to get to what's sometimes very technical in the field around airtightness and insulating every little centimeter of the house, and being able to offer that in sort of a very understandable way that does go together in a very logical way. I mean, I could open what we call the assembly sets, and it looks like the IKEA instructions for putting together the shell of the house. And I think in that, especially in such a dense area of devastation, being able to offer an assurance because it's a material purchase rather than labor on site, not knowing how long it's going to take to do all those steps, then I think it is stabilizing. And I think for a lot of people, we're able to offer an assurance of being competitive with site built while also getting it up months faster, which I think is helpful right now. And we didn't really talk about the sound quality, but I do think it's important. I'm sitting in a house that I built 13 years ago that is a passive house in Santa Fe, New Mexico, but it's an infill neighborhood. So there's construction still around me in all directions. With the windows and doors closed, I can't hear it. And I think knowing that there's going to be construction for a long time in Altadena and Pasadena and the Palisades, that you could have that sort of peace and quiet and not have to have that like reminder all the time. Again, getting in, ultimately everybody's going to get in before someone else because it's going to take a very long time to get all of these lots rebuilt. But I think it's a negligible cost, and it's more important that your builder understands what your goals are so that you don't get that like unknown 25% markup. Oh, it's like new technology or something a pain, or, I think that's the thing. We want to offer good data upfront, pricing for the stuff that's sort of critical, envelope, good windows and doors, the ventilation system, the heat pump, those things, to like have known prices upfront and have your builder give the competitive costing for foundation and plumbing, electrical, drywall, all of those things, because those are pretty standard.
Cool.
Does that help a little bit? I know we didn't give you a
Yeah.
dollar amount.
No, that's a perfect answer. Thank you.
Okay, I'm
Thanks.
glad. Yeah.
I
Anyone
guess
else?
I would,
Yeah, go
I
ahead,
kind of want
Steve.
to add to that. Sorry. Just that, what was I going to add to that? That typically it is not what the comparison homes are not, it's hard to compare against like a production builder who in our area can still build at $300 a square foot to $350, right? And a custom builder is in the $400 to $500 a square foot range here in our market. And so we can be just as low in that custom build end as anybody. I think where production builders are are really cutting corners is what we can't compete with. And that's not something and again, it's not about passive house. We're building passive houses much lower dollar per square foot than, just higher end architects that are just focusing on the finishes. So that is a distinction. Like you cannot get the level of quality. It's the doing passive house. If you're going to do a decent level of quality, it's almost a no-brainer.
And production builder, does everybody know what that means? Because that's sort of inside baseball a little bit. In my mind, a production builder is somebody who's building entire subdivisions. So they have scale on their teams. They have scale in terms of they're building 100, 200 homes in a season rather than doing 1 to 10. That would be the difference between a production builder and a residential contractor.
Shout out to Steven Stewart for what you just wrote in the chat. That's right. It's totally true. And air quality, I think in your area and our area is pretty bad, you know, even if it's not fires.
Eloise, go for it.
Is it possible to get an idea of the design costs for using kind of a standard floor plan and maybe making modifications? Like, is there a percentage you can give, or I don't even know how.
It's a really excellent question. And for B.Public and for all of our collaborators, we try and give real costs for that. It ranges a little bit. I'm happy to take a stab at it. Or JD, you want to jump in? Because I'm just going to represent you guys. These are very high-level architects. They do not charge based on a percentage of construction, which is somewhat the norm in the industry, that you will have an estimate of the fees. If something goes awry, you get updated on, okay, we just redid the 7th version of that. We're going into overtime. It's going to go past what was estimated. And I think that's important. JD, you're saying yes. I'll let you jump in. Go.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great overview of how we approach fees. We typically, if we're just talking, so B.Public breaks it into a schematic design agreement, and then we have a separate agreement for projects that are moving into design development and construction documents. So, I mean, I think the best way to get a handle of it is to contact us, and we'll just give you, you know, that schematic design agreement, and we provide a range of fees, so kind of a low and a high end, just to address what Edie was talking about, right? Is that every process is a little unique, even if you're using a standard plan, and we want to budget accordingly for that. Yeah, that would be, I think, the best way to get a sense of what those initial design fees are like.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
That was
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah,
problem,
and I would represent, you know, going from something that is like the West, like making very small modifications to that, like decks, adding a garage, versus a total custom with us.
Mhm.
There is a range there when we talk about low and high. There's also a speed there. But again, this is going to be a forever home. And I would say somewhere between, on the low end, like 15, 18,000 to like 35. I mean, we can build castles, but our range tends to be in there. But again, we're not going to move forward on anything without you knowing what we think that work is going to take. Steve, you want to jump in? And I'm going to represent our partners here. Incredibly affordable for such high quality.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that our range is probably slightly higher, and we do not charge on percentage of construction. Like JD said, it's very similar structure, but that we often benchmark, or we can so it correlates to around 5% of the construction cost. But that does range from, and that's like I think it would go down for a pre-design, or I should say it's lower than that for a pre-design. That's sort of the high end of its, and then it's very hard to say though, like how much variability there will be, because often, you know, you love the Cascade House, but it doesn't fit on your lot. So there's a ton of variability there. And again, it can be a little higher than that if it's a really small house, but there's like a lot of things that we're doing in it for sure. And so, yeah, probably more on the like 25 to 50K would be the range of costs for us on a 2,000 square foot-ish scale of house. And we've certainly done it for less, but again, it's one of those things where it's like, well, and I think we should be clear, the pre-design helps a ton on that front end and that schematic design phase, but we don't have structural engineering in California in your seismic zone without our snow loads. And so there's work to be done there. And then I just have to be super honest. We haven't permitted something in Altadena before. So it varies extremely widely how onerous that process is, and that does impact the fee as well.
Yeah, and I would like Holly to jump in, and we do have structural engineer partners who have stamped projects for us in California. So all of these partners would have a structural engineer sign off on
And we've
all of
worked
these
with
plans. Yeah.
we've all worked with the same engineers, so it's still a full.
Holly, go for it.
Yeah, our pre-designed options come at a really nice attainable level. They're working with B.Public. They start at about 5,000. And then once we start to make revisions, it's really dependent on what you want to revise and how much you want to revise. We like to just have a conversation first with you, talk about what those revisions would entail, get an idea of that, and then we can just create a proposal for you based on what you're looking to do. Those, what we like to call our semi-custom, if you're starting to customize anything, those costs range from 8 to 15,000 usually. And yeah, we can always like talk about the amount of scope too, like what drawings you actually need in order to get started, and then maybe phase other things in to like tease that cost out a little bit. So
Yeah, and of course, with all of these, you've got a lot of support and some of the standard detailing for foundations and ventilation rates and things from B.Public. Other questions? This was excellent, and we will do this again. I'm happy to take suggestions, requests for the living room sessions. I just heard a lot from builders in the area this week saying, hey, can we do one next? Yes, I think that is an excellent opportunity. I'm afraid that the chat will be way more active and people trying to get people to show up on site. I do appreciate everything that the pros are doing, all of the community who shows up to these and tonight. I appreciate what all of you who have lost your homes are going through, and the patience and research to delve in and really get informed and ask good questions and look for good partners. That is our goal. Whether you work with B.Public or not, we want you working with a team that's on your team, that you trust. It is a process. For all of these projects, we know there are steps that have to happen first. I'm hearing very good news about sites being cleared. I'm talking to neighbors who are working together on those surveys. For all of these partners, we will need that survey to submit a permit. So that is very important to this process. And no home plan from all of us will be complete until it really is sited properly. I think Steve very nicely talked about the neighbor's house. We really do want to think about those views and where the sun is coming in or where we want shading, but we also want it in relationship to your neighborhood and think about privacy versus public spaces where you can gather, because we do want everyone back in these neighborhoods and talking over the fireproof fences, right? Sharing tools out of the garage and working together. So we're very proud to be helping and offering information. And again, we're really grateful for time in your living room. We will continue to do these meetings online, and we will come to the area. And this was all named for the living rooms that were offered to us by your neighbors who did not lose their homes, who wanted something that they could do and really believe in the work that we're doing. and they offered their living room. So right now it's online, but soon it will be there. And we can gather and spend more time together, which I think is really important in this process. I thank you all. I'm happy to stick around for last questions for anyone or to grab the chat. I will get the recording somewhere on YouTube and back onto that same page for the fire rebuild page on our website, and I'll try and get it shared out on social. I was really gratified to see that people really are visiting that YouTube and using it as a resource. So we'll continue to do that. The internet is amazing. I am grateful to be connected to all of you and share the work of these amazing partners. Holly, thanks for staying up a little later tonight. Say hello to Brooklyn. Steve, thank you. And thank you to your whole team at Shape. We just love working with you guys, and we're so proud to partner you on this. And JD, always a pleasure. I look forward to seeing you back at the office in the
Bright and
morning.
early.
Yeah, we'll be back at it. We're here doing the good work for you guys, and we're very proud to support and hope to see you home soon. We're here for you. Reach out as you need. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Good night.
Thanks, Edie. I look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks.